Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is an official episode of Sylvester Stallone Podcast Network show. I'm, of course, very excited to be with my only co-host that I do with this show. No one else has ever been a co-host. Doug has sometimes said, "Oh, you guys do it without me," and I'm like, "No, that's not going to happen. We will wait months. We'll wait years." And it has been a few months really quickly before I turn over to you guys. I was away, Ryan. I was away in Qatar for 3 months on deployment. I was there with, what can I say? Put it this way. If you saw the news about things out of Yemen or something, if you saw the news, I was the guy that saw it first on the watch floor. I'll say that much. So it was a very interesting experience, and to work with the Americans, and they're great people. I'm always very impressed by the American military. It's always a very impressive unit and people that work there. So I want to say, anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you serve whatever country, but specifically if you serve with the American military, I just want to say thank you for being always great to us Canadians when we come and play with you guys. Okay, so that's why it's been a few months. Doug, why don't you tell people what's been up with you?
What's been up with me? I haven't been on the mic a lot lately. I had a baby. Well, I didn't have the baby. My wife did, but
I didn't want to assume. You can't assume nowadays. You know?
that's correct. That's correct. But no, she's keeping me busy, but she's doing very, very well.
Lovely girl. Much better looking than your sons, for sure. So
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the son's got your looks, and your daughter got your wife's, which is appropriate.
That's the way it should be.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's good to hear your voice again. Are you going to get any more Rocky minutes coming up? I know you got some of the bank.
Yeah, I had a massive system breakdown.
Tell the people what happened there.
My computer that I have all my Rocky files stored on took a crap. So I have to go to the Apple store to see if they can extract the files. If not, I have some re-editing to do. The ones that I have had recorded, except yours, Ryan, that I have on an external hard drive.
So you have those?
I have those, yeah.
Then that's all that matters. As long as you have mine, I don't care about anyone else.
Yeah, but I have to re-edit the ones that I have edited, and it's just a process. I have to get on the ball, though.
Well, we miss hearing you, and there's only one person I miss more than hearing on our network and on our show, of course, is Mr. Craig, who is the pod father of us all, who started this whole thing. Craig, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Apologies in advance. My dogs decided that they decide to, roughhouse once every 2 months, and
if it's not the dogs, it's the parakeets, right? Remember?
Yeah, well, no, we got rid of them.
I know. I haven't heard them in a while.
Yeah, no,
I wanted to shoot those birds on some of our recordings. Like, shut up.
But no, it's always great to chat with you two guys. It's my main podcasting outlet right now. It's always great when we can sit down and we're finally talking about a movie that I've been wanting to talk about.
Before we get to the movie, you said this is your main outlet for podcasting for now, but you do have a project coming up. Would you like to talk to the listeners? Because there are a lot of people listening to the show who love you, of course, who tolerate me and adore Doug. Let them know what you plan on doing. What's going on here?
If you followed me on social media at any point, you probably know that I'm a pretty big Brian De Palma fan. He's one of my favorite filmmakers. So I decided that it's time to do a Brian De Palma podcast, but this one's going to be a little bit different. Doug and Ryan, you're both going to be guests at some point. Every episode, we're going to take a Brian De Palma movie, and we're going to focus on one scene from that movie and go over why that scene is so great and why it contributes to the great movie that we're talking about. Brian De Palma made 30 films in his career.
I didn't know it was that many.
Yeah. If you look at his prime years, it's probably 15 to 17. But if he made a movie within the last 7 or 8 years, not really worth watching. So there's plenty of movies to pick from. And the other great thing about Brian De Palma is I don't think there's any other filmmaker that has succeeded in so many different genres than he has. He's made legitimate horror movies. He's made legitimate action movies. He's made legitimate dramas. He's made legitimate comedies. Other filmmakers have sort of dabbled in that, but nobody has, I think, excelled and succeeded and mastered as many genres as Brian De Palma did. And I'm really looking forward to it. I know we're planning on talking a fun movie, and I've got some other fun movies from some of the other folks on the network lined up. I hope to get everybody from the network on board. Also, if there's anybody out there listening that has the ability to record and feels like they can spend 10 to 15 minutes talking about a favorite Brian De Palma scene that they have, once the show is out, and available, you'll have the information you need to get in contact with me to make that happen. But I'm planning to get a bunch of episodes in the can, probably 8 to 10 episodes, and then do a every other week schedule. I don't know. I'm committed to at least 10 or 12 episodes. We'll see what happens. It really depends on the interest, who I can get to talk about Brian De Palma. But again, I love Brian De Palma. I've been watching his films a lot lately. If you're a film lover, he's just a great filmmaker to watch.
Does he have a style, or is he more of a chameleon? Where
No, I mean, he definitely has a style. Visually, he definitely has a style. I also think there's a level
it's called
of
weird.
the Dutch angles and everything?
Yeah, he's got a different. It's not commercial-ish. It's a different style.
But he's made commercial films that integrate that style, and I think that's what makes him such a unique filmmaker. I also think he's got a sense of humor or the ability to satire that I think gets overlooked a lot. And I think it's kind of like even Stanley Kubrick, who's another titan of American filmmaking. Well, a lot of people think about what a serious filmmaker Kubrick is, but if you watch his movies, there's a level of humor and satire sprinkled throughout those as well. And I think De Palma's like that as well. Last night we were watching Phantom of the Paradise, and I told my wife when it was over, she was like, wow, that was a movie. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, it's the same guy that made Carlito's Way. And I mean, those are like one's a cult film, a cult rock and roll musical, and the other one's like a really serious action sort of / drama. One thing that De Palma does brilliantly is the split screen, where you'll have two pieces of action occurring at the same time that you're seeing.
Right.
He did it in Carrie. He does it in Phantom of the Paradise. I can't wait to cover those scenes because the level of skill and planning that's involved in shooting one of those scenes is just remarkable. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I think the one thing about podcasting is if you're not excited about what you're doing, it's real easy not to do it. So yeah, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I got a bunch in the can and I can start releasing. But thank you for letting me commit to that on air, Ryan, because prior now I actually have to release something.
Yeah, that's right. Don't make this your Judge Dredd podcast.
See, but that's the thing, Ryan. Judge Dredd was what, 2.5 hours? By committing to 10 to 15 minute long episodes, I don't have to say, oh my God, I have 110 minutes that I have to slog through and edit.
I'll try so hard. Look, when I go on your episode, I'll try so hard to go under an hour.
Yeah.
But I'm doing Untouchables. Here's the tease. I'm guesting for an Untouchables episode on that podcast, and I love that movie. Love mafia movies. Love Kevin Costner. I could just talk forever about just mafia movies and Kevin Costner. So I'll try very hard to be focused on whatever scene we're covering. I promise I'll try to stay focused. And you spoke of the network. I just want to say this. The majority of our listeners to this podcast, actually, we have a standalone podcast called the Sylvester Stallone Podcast Network, and it's our biggest audience actually downloads our episodes from that standalone feed on iTunes. I just want to invite those listeners to also check out. You have to Google. The easiest way to do, folks, is just Google The Last of the Action Heroes Podcast Network, because this podcast is also on that network, and that's what Craig was speaking to about the network, the further network beyond this network, where all these other hosts host other shows. So if you like what we do here, we have Rocky, we have Rambo, we have Bruce Willis, we have Van Damme, we have Dolph Lundgren, we have Mel Gibson, and all other types of action films, and James Bond film coverage,
Seagal.
all that on Seagal. Yeah. Hey, you and I did a Seagal film. I loved it, man. Which one did we do? Was it the first one, Above the Law? Was that the first one we did?
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
You and I did.
I forgot. I thought we were talking to Craig for a sec. Yes, we did Above the Law. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so check that out. So that's on the Last of the Action Heroes Podcast Network. Just Google it. It'll come up, and you'll see how you can listen to whatever app you use. Okay. All right. Well, folks, we are doing Spy Kids 3 Game Over. We'll start with you, Doug. Had you seen this film before preparing for this podcast?
No, all the Spy Kids kind of miss me. You know, I think I'm from a different generation, but
well, we're the same age. But
you probably watched it for the Stallone.
I definitely saw parts 1 and 2 before part 3 came out, and the reason why is because I have, as you guys know, older sons. I have a 25 and a 23-year-old son, so I saw the other two films with my kids at the time they were younger. So I would have watched those with them to kind of watch a fun little action film for kids. And that's what the Spy Kid films were. At least the first two were very enjoyable. Like, I wasn't bored as an adult, and I was in my mid-20s then as well. So I was a young father with young kids watching these films with my children because I love films. Part 3 comes along, and to be honest, I don't know when or what. I'm sure I watched it when it came out, and that was if you can believe, it was 21 years ago this film came out. So I probably saw it with them again as well, but Did I see it because of Sly? Sure, that was an added little bonus, a little bit of pepper on the steak, so to speak, because I saw the first two with my sons anyways. Whoever would have been the toy maker in that movie, whoever that would have been cast, I probably still would have seen the film because it was the third film, the Spy Kids trilogy is what I'm getting at. So, but I've never reinvestigated the film in 21 years. Craig, when did you first see this film?
Oh, I saw this one in theaters, and you know, Robert Rodriguez wrote and directed it. I've always been a big Robert Rodriguez fan, so you know, when the first Spy Kids came out, went and saw it in the theater. No, I wasn't the target audience for it, but still saw it. Went and saw part 2 in the theater.
Did you bring like a fake kid just so nobody thought you were a creep?
No, I went with a buddy. I mean,
I know.
And I think it was probably an empty theater. You know, you go at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday after work or something. There's not families there. Went and saw the second one, which I think is a cool kind of throwback. And that's a movie I would love to talk about. The Island of Lost Dreams, I think it's called. And it's got a lot of sort of Harryhausen inspired stop motion. So by the time 3 came out, I was invested in the series. Yeah. And to sort of see Stallone come back after sort of wallowing in,
well, speak to that wallowing. Let's just talk about it right now then, because this is kind of key. Because I remember when he, like, again, I was familiar with the first 2 films, thought they were decent, fun little family films, whatever. Still not quite understanding who Robert Rodriguez was until the Sin City films. I just thought, okay, cool. Do you guys remember how you felt about the casting? Did you feel like, oof? Did you think it was, like, we could look back now and say, oh, yeah, he's friends with Robert. He got to work with Robert. Good for him. But I remember at the time being, you know, obviously been a Sly fan my whole life. I remember thinking, boy, when will he get out of this rut that he's in right now? And I didn't think this was going to help him. What were your thoughts at the time?
I didn't have any. This completely missed me by. I remember this movie coming out, and I remember it being a 3D thing that I had no interest in. So I had no thoughts on Sly even being in it.
Okay.
So you can cut my editorial out.
No, that was, we want to hear your thoughts or no thoughts. Okay. If memory is serving me correctly, I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, Sly, what are you doing? Craig, what were your thoughts of the casting at the time? Do you recall?
I was super excited about it. Looking just at his filmography right now, he did get Carter in 2000 and Driven in 2001, which were both theatrical releases. And then he, you know, did what? Detox, Avenging Angelo.
Detox or ICU, depending on.
Yeah. And then Shade. So it really wasn't looking good for him. He was 3 films in a row that went straight to DVD or home video. Prior to the Get Carter and Driven, he had done Copland in 97. So people weren't really talking about Stallone. So when I saw that he was doing this movie and it was getting a theatrical release, that was the thing I was really excited for. I was like, we're going to have a chance to see Sly on the big screen again where he belongs. And as controversial as this sounds, I think this is the last pure, up until probably Tulsa King, it's probably like the last pure sort of inspired acting we've gotten from Sly. I don't count the Rocky and Rambo movies just because those are sort of, I don't want to say autopilot, but those are characters that are so ingrained in him that it doesn't require anything. However you feel about Spy Kids 3, Sly's performance is a performance. Now, whether or not we agree with what he did is another story, but it's a performance. And I don't think until Tulsa King, he really was performing.
That's an interesting perspective. Let's talk about that for a sec. That's actually, wow, I didn't consider that, Craig, and that might bump it up just a bit for me then about how I feel about what he did on screen. I will give him a little bit of that. You're right. When you look at all these other films that he did since Spy Kids 3, the Rambos, the Expendables, even the Rockies, how much more of a Sly did we really get? What kind
Barney
of
Ross isn't a character?
No, no. It's Stallone giving lines. I'm a manly man lines. There's no character depth. And you're right. Tulsa King, you're absolutely correct. And he kills it as Dwight the General and Freddy. He kills it because you don't see Sly. You know, like what it means. You don't see Rocky or Rambo. And that means he's performing. Yeah, I see a different character with the Tulsa King.
Yeah.
So you're right. That I never considered the fact. Take away Suicide Squad's King Shark voice for sure.
Yeah.
But you're right. Every other film was just kind of Sly in a film.
Yeah. And I will say this. I know a lot of times we talk about Sly's looks, and he was what? He was in his 50s here, right? His mid.
21 years ago. He's 77 now.
So his mid 50s.
76. He's 55 this year. Yeah.
Yeah. because I think right after this, he probably started pushing for Rocky Balboa and probably started hitting the HGH and gaining weight and all that. But here, he looks slim and trim, and he looks good. I think he looks good here. I mean, it might be Sly's last great, form. I mean, his eyebrows are where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's a little low. It starts low.
The hair looked fantastic. It was a real good. It was a good piece that he had on this film.
I mean, he looked like Sly. It was before his face started to melt a little bit.
Well, and he put on a lot of weight for Balboa. So I mean, he's got to be what? He's got to be at like his Rocky 3 weight here, but without the muscle.
Yeah, I really wish. I'll talk about Rocky Balboa when I do my coverage on the One More Round podcast. But I didn't like his build in Rocky Balboa at all. I kind of wish he looked like this. I wish he looked slimmer. I wish he was a slimmer fighting build than a bulkier one. Here's what I'll say. We mentioned this with our Get Carter review, but I think it bears repeating a little bit now. When I saw him here and how he looked good, that's what I mean. Hair and everything, he looked well put together as a 55-year-old guy. He looked like a great looking 55-year-old man. Salt and pepper hair, the nice chiseled face, the slimmer physique. Then again, I screamed at the Hollywood heavens like, oh, these wasted years and proper roles, gritty, pulpy, playing a bad guy, mob movies, everything. It's so frustrating to look at what he did during that period of straight to DVD. In whatever type films, it might have just been a combination of bad time with directors and scripts, with his bankability. The movie scene was changing to like Spider-Man films and Marvel films. I get it, but what a wasted time in his age and stage. I mean, we didn't talk about that way with Paul Newman or Robert Redford or these other screen classics or Clint Eastwood. I feel bad for Sly. I feel like there was this weirdly missed decade and a half of films and how he looked and the kind of characters he could have played in this age range, and seeing him here playing the toy maker. Why was he called the toy? What toys did he make? The
video game.
Okay, hey, we'll get.
I do want to speak to something because I've said this on Slycast before. I'm sure I've said it on this show before, but I really think part of the reason that Sly's career went where it went after Copland is because of the Weinsteins, Bob and Harvey, and whatever kind of relationship he had with those two, because I know he was committed to multiple films with Miramax that didn't happen. And I really think that the Weinstein brothers should be held accountable, at least partially, for not committing to whatever they committed to him for after Copland, because after Copland, he had a rocket on his back and it misfired. Now, whether that was an intentional misfire or an accidental misfire, either way, Copland set him up for something that just never happened. And I'm not a Hollywood insider. I'm not privy to any of that information. Maybe some of our friends who are friends with Sly could speak to that. But I really, truly think that his career was sabotaged a little bit. I won't let Sly off the hook for making the decisions that he did make. I do think that something went on that robbed him of the ability to sort of capitalize on what he achieved with Copland.
All right. Awesome. Now, let's get into the film itself. So it came out in 2003.
It's unfair to call this a Spy Kids movie, really. It's a Junie solo film. Junie, a Spy Kids story. And I don't know why that was. I don't know if like they couldn't get Antonio Banderas to commit to more than 2 days, or Carla or Alexa Vega. But watching it for the first time in probably 19 years, I was like, wow, this is not a Spy Kids movie.
Why? I agree with you too. And I was watching the same thing. I was like watching this film, and starts off with Junie, playing some sort of like gumshoe film noir detective type speak. I'm like, what are we watching here? Is this like a short or something? Then it segues into this video game movie. Why is it just him? Did I miss something from the first two films? I admit I haven't watched those. I didn't watch those. I almost watched them again in preparation for Spy Kids 3, but I thought, you know what? I think I can watch this by itself to get the gist.
But see, there are some callbacks though, because you get that little girl, Haley Joel Osment's sister, that flies in. I think she's from part 2.
Oh, is that his sister?
It looked just like Haley Joel Osment with like a wig on. Like you.
Oh God!
A little bit. I guess you're right. If you've seen recent pictures of her now, she turned out much better, a better looking adult than her brother.
Okay. And then like, what's his face? Steve Buscemi is in part 2. The guy with the weird head. Quick trivia: do you know what this Daryl Sabara is? The kid, Junie. That's the actor's name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you know who he's married to and has kids with right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
Who?
You remember that girl that sang All About That Bass? Megan Trainor?
Yeah.
They're
He's married to Megan Trainor?
with kids.
You knew that, Doug?
No, I didn't. That's crazy.
Oh, I see her now. Okay. Interesting. What a weird... I mean, good for them. Good for them. And he is still acting himself. So that name is, again, what's his name?
I think it's
Sabera.
Daryl, yeah. And he was in, which we've talked about on the network, he was in Machete.
No. You're saying it wrong.
Machete.
Yeah. Show the respect that his name deserves.
And also, Alexa Vega was in the Machete movies too, the second Machete movie, and it's really weird to watch her in that movie because I don't know, it makes you question Robert Rodriguez a little bit. It's like this sort of kid he watched grow up, and then he puts her in chaps, and
yeah, it's not his fault. She grew up to be she's quite an attractive woman now. She's in her 30s now, of course. But Spy Kids 3, Doug, what's your overall feeling on the film? Or
I know what 3D used to be. You know what I mean? I mean, it's at least it wasn't old 3D where the two
red and blue
frames were layered over each other. But they went for it, and I see what they were going for, and it's focused towards kids, and I get that. Like I said, I wasn't invested in the story because I'm not a Spy Kids fan, so I didn't know who Junie and the Carmen and everybody else was. The story itself, I couldn't care less about.
Fair enough.
It wasn't unenjoyable overall.
It wasn't unenjoyable. Okay.
Yeah, the cameos. There was a ton of cameos that I was like, "Oh, that's cool. That's cool." You know, and
that was the callback Craig was talking about. I remembered enough knowing those were. And those are also actors that Robert works with quite a bit too.
Well, and I think they work with him because they know it. Robert Rodriguez probably called up George Clooney, was like, "You don't even have to come to Texas.
We filmed in his living room. Those are George's living room scenes."
and I think that's what actors really appreciated. Like another one is like Bruce Willis in Grindhouse in Planet Terror. Bruce Willis did 3 days worth of work on that movie. And I think that's what a lot of actors like with Rodriguez is he works quick. He works with technology that allows him to work quick. And they can commit to a movie that they know they're going to have fun doing for the day or the 2 or 3 days they're involved. And one thing on the effects, better effects in this one than Expendables 4, which was a movie that came out last year.
That's a fair point.
How dare you?
The other thing I will say that was smart of Rodriguez here is the movie is supposed to be in a video game. So it's supposed to look fake.
Yeah.
So I think he kind of leaned into that. It's funny watching this again. I saw it in theaters in 3D, but watching it here at home on Paramount Plus, you can see all the 3D gimmicks. You know, there's a scene where like Ricardo Montalban like flicks something towards the screen, and I always love like when you can pick the gimmick moments in a 3D movie.
Well, that's all this film was. What I've done here, folks, if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, I've curated all the Sly scenes from this film and a couple of extra scenes, and I think the video itself is like 10 minutes long, so it gives you an idea. Sly had about 8 to 10 minutes of screen time in an 80-minute film, which is, I guess, is not too bad because it's not really a cameo. He's not starring Stallone. He is, quote unquote, the bad guy. But if you think of a bad guy of like Jim Carrey's stature, for example, in the Sonic films, which is also geared towards kids and heavy in CGI, I mean, he is the star. Jim Carrey's, what's his name, Dr. Robotic or whatever his name is. And he really is the star. Speaking of which, they're doing a third Sonic film with Jim Carrey. He agreed to it. Anyway, so let's get into some of the scenes here with Sly, and we're going to see some of that CGI. I just want to say this about the game, though, the game concept. I understand why they would do a game concept because that's how they can get away, or that's how they can utilize the 3D, which was big at the time, within the film. It's like, hey, let's make this a video game. Then we can incorporate CGI, but in some ways, kind of a cheat. It might be easier to do the 3D using CGI graphics to do the 3D imagery and stuff. It's clever. It's a clever way of doing this technology at the time, to use CGI as the movie prop, so to speak, to utilize this technology.
I think that this movie, had he not made this movie, Sin City might not have looked the way it did, because this was him playing with the technology, doing almost all green screen work. And if you've seen the behind the scenes of Sin City, I don't think there was a practical set in that entire film. Sin City, of course, is done with a lot more artistry and a lot more realism, but it also looks like a comic book movie. And I think, again, Spy Kids 3D was him being like, hey, let me play with this technology and have fun with it and learn it at the same time, because Robert Rodriguez is one of those filmmakers that I'm sure if he goes to the store and buys something you have to put together, he throws the instructions out and just figures out how it's supposed to be assembled.
This was his baby soup to nuts too. I mean, he did everything from writing, directing, producing, designing, editing, cinematography, composing, and the visual effects. Like, he did it all. He has 8 credits.
He's an amazing filmmaker. He's a filmmaker that's lost his way on occasion, but you cannot dispute his love of film and also his love of collaboration, but also his ability to do everything. I don't know if you guys have watched The Mandalorian or the Book of Boba Fett, but I believe he was the director of the last episode of the Book of Boba Fett, which is probably the greatest 12-year-old episode of a Star Wars related project. And what I mean is the last episode of Book of Boba Fett, and I haven't watched it since it aired, looks and feels like you're 12 years old on the floor with all your Star Wars toys playing.
Yeah, he's running a Rancor, for crying out loud. Who didn't,
that's what I mean.
Who didn't put a character on the back of a Rancor?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the other thing about Robert Rodriguez is, like, as much as he's excelled at being a Hollywood filmmaker and an adult, he's never sort of lost that inner 12-year-old, which it's hard to do. I mean, as we get older, we get cynical, we get jaded, we lose that ability to sort of imagine. And one thing, again, I will not defend all of Robert Rodriguez's projects, but I respect the heck out of the fact that he's been able to retain his enthusiasm and his love and his imagination. And say what you want about Spy Kids 3, I don't think it was made for us. I think Doug nailed it when he said it wasn't. I don't even remember what he said. It wasn't unenjoyable. Yeah.
It wasn't unenjoyable. I take nothing away from the kids that enjoy this movie. It was a very digestible hour and 22 minutes.
I had a harder time, I think, than you guys getting through it. I don't know if I was in the wrong headspace. I enjoy a good kids film too. I mean, it does have a 4.4 rating on IMDb, which I think is
out of
fair.
5.
No, no. It was if it was out of 5, it'd be 2.2. It was out of 10. Of course, you go to Sin City on the same IMDb, it's out of 8. I'm sorry, 8 out of 10 is the score, so that's fair as well. So, Sin City is one of the best films. I love that film so much. I think it's a near perfect film myself. I love the style, I love the look, I love how gritty it is. I love Mickey Rourke's performance. It's just weird how artists can do this. How they can have a movie like Sin City for adults, and then they have Spy Kids 3 for kids. Why the disparaging or the such a chasm between quality? I don't get it. I don't get why the one for adults, you knocked it out of the park, and kids should not watch Sin City. It's strictly for, an older audience. But then why couldn't you do the same quality control on the kids? I don't know what they talk about behind the camera.
Well, I think you kind of answered your own question. It's the audience. Nobody's expecting Spy Kids 3D or Spy Kids 3 Game Over to be anything other than a nice way to kill 80 minutes, whereas Sin City was supposed to be watched and appreciated as a piece of cinema. Right. And also, I do think that Rodriguez was at a point in his life where he had young kids, and I think he was looking to work in environments that would also allow his kids to be involved in the process. He made a movie called Shark Girl and Lava Boy that his son wrote. His 8-year-old son wrote. Right. So I think a lot of times when you see filmmakers doing these goofy projects, a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, it's I wanted a movie my kids could watch."
No, fair enough. That's fair. I'm just challenging those questions for discussion, but that's a fair response. Alistair, I think, might have missed our discussion at the beginning of the episode because he basically just said what I said here, but he said Sly wasted a decade following Copland, wish he'd collaborated with Tarantino or done something like Tulsa King earlier around that period. We said, I think, Alistair, you missed that. We said that exact same thing. There was that decade of age and time and acting chops that Sly does have with the proper project. It is very frustrating as a Sly fan that I am to have a wasted, with these wasted years essentially for whatever reason. I mean, he had a young family, sure, whatever the reasons were. In my opinion, as a fan, I felt they were wasted. But every artist has that period, whether it's a band or actor, where you're like, oh my gosh, you're so talented. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, wasn't it floated? And I could be misremembering, and I wish our buddy Scott was here from the Church of Tarantino. I want to feel like Sly was considered for the Robert De Niro role in Jackie Brown.
I think so. I think,
and for whatever reason, it didn't happen.
What was
which
the
would have
reason,
been
though?
cool. As great as Robert De Niro was,
there was a reason. I think at the time, I think it was a family thing. I think Sly was feeling like maybe not to do that kind of film. Because this was around the same time they just finished Cop. You know what? We'd have to go back. So, Scott, if you're listening, let us know. Okay, so I do have some scenes here. Let's do the first scene that Sly pops into in the film. So,
how much screen time does Stallone actually get? Do you know how many minutes?
yeah, I put it all together, and I didn't include him talking. So there was a scene where we could talk about it now, but there was a scene where he announces the Mech Warrior fight. So it's basically the Rocky-esque. I don't know if you guys got the nod there. Saying no kidney punches, no rabbit punches. That was, of course, the little nod to Rocky. And then there was also the nod to, of course, Death Race 2000, where he's the announcer there saying, we'll win at all costs. I don't know if Rodriguez wrote that with Sly in mind, but the toy maker / Sly, of course, was the announcer. You see him off screen, his character's off screen, but you hear his voice announcing these events. Did you guys catch the Rocky and Death Race connection to those two?
Death Race, not so much, but the Rocky, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought the Death Race was almost obvious. I could be wrong about that. I think they were saying as well in the trivia that the nod to Death Race was also when the toy maker says it's how you play the game or something like that. That was apparently a Death Race. Was that not true?
Yeah. It's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game.
Yeah. But
did you include the end credits scenes with Sly, Ryan?
I have every scene that Sly was physically shown. I have recorded.
Okay, because during the end credits, he basically goes right into the Rocky voice on set.
Oh, are you talking about like during the end credits?
Yeah, it's like a Smokey and the Bandit style bloopers.
Oh,
and there's a scene where he starts doing the Rocky voice for everyone.
Hey, how you doing, Valentine? Hey, no. Yo, Valentine, what are you doing in space?
So here we go. Here is Junie is going to the big event of this game called Game Over. Of course, this is the release of Game Over. So even back then in 2003, I guess you still couldn't stream games to your computer. You had to line up to buy them, which I think was the case back then for sure.
I was standing in line to buy my copy of the biggest virtual reality game in history. It goes online at midnight. It's pretty exciting, I suppose.
Game over! The biggest video game to ever be created, period. This is a worldwide event. The game was created by someone known only as the Toy Maker, who was, once again, unavailable for interviews. Oh, and did we mention the surprises the Toy Maker has in store for those of you that complete Level 5, Untold Riches, toys and prizes beyond your wildest dreams.
Okay, so that's the first introduction for kids and Sly fans alike, is Sly being silly, announcing the game over. I guess kids can watch the commercial or something. It must be one of those things where it runs and repeats itself, I guess, because they're already there to buy the game, but still we're seeing the commercial and announcing the game called Game Over. Now, it said it was created by the toy maker who doesn't want to be interviewed. This is a bit of confusing to me. What was this game supposed to do to mankind? What was the ultimate end goal?
All right, that got a little convoluted, but he was supposed to take over the world using this game somehow. It made it seem like he was trapped inside the game, and this was a way for him to be let out into the world.
Yeah, so where was the toy maker's, his name, by the way, is Sebastian, if you caught that at the end.
Yeah.
So where was Sebastian / toy maker? Where was his physical body located? Do we know?
I don't know. And no,
well,
I don't.
Well, it would be the same. Like, how did Junie, when like Salma Hayek and Mike Judge send him into the game?
Where's
where
his body?
Did he go like physically into the game?
You remember the inside the headquarters there that showed players kind of like logged in? I think that's what they were like. I think they're like sitting down playing the game, but they didn't make it very clear. Robert Rodriguez didn't make it very clear like how they were logged in, because you're right, because when he puts on the glasses to enter the game, he goes, you got to wear these glasses, which tells the audience now's the time to put on your 3D glasses, right? So
that's a classic 3D trope.
I know. Put on your glasses or we can't see the game. So they put all the kids now have to put on their glasses to watch the 3D effects as Junie enters the game. But you're right, it appears that Junie enters the game a la Tron-like in a way, like he's physically in the game, but we see players get eliminated from the game. They're not dying. They're not like Matrix style dying inside their seats. So it is a little kind of confusing. Are they physically in the game or are they not? So in the movie world, what are we led to believe? So take it outside of this discussion. Are they physically in the game like Tron?
No.
That leaves Ryan's question: where was Sebastian? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he was. But it doesn't show like when the grandpa Montalban lets him out. He just shows up in his Mecha Godzilla thing. Like I don't know how he got from inside the game to steampunk Sly.
All right. So a little bit of questions. Maybe our audience can answer these questions for us, because it says later that Sebastian built this within his prison. So the idea
God.
he built this MMO somehow within a virtual prison. So it's like he's in the Phantom Zone. and he's building Game Over, and somehow he's able to produce physical copies of this thing for people to buy. How was Sebastian, the toy maker, like distribution rights? What systems and requirements? I just love the idea that he creates this game for the PC, I presume, at the time.
well, yeah, but then Junie also says it goes online at midnight. So, like, are these kids waiting for this game to?
I guess you buy the software to install. Yeah. You buy the software to install, but it won't be. You can't play until midnight. Is that New York time? LA time? Was it?
We've had that problem ourselves. I do want to talk to Sly in this scene, though. I love this. I love where you're seeing an actor playing a character that's acting. So there's two levels of acting going on here. There's Stallone acting as Sebastian, pretending to be the news anchor.
Right.
And then there's Sebastian, the toy maker, trying to convince people that he's not the toy maker and that he's a news anchor. So there's like two levels of acting going on here. And I think Doug pointed it out, the little mustache adjustment he makes.
Yeah, it's
mustache is crooked.
It's so subtle. He had so many opportunities to overact and to go all stop or my mom will shoot. He really reined it in. I don't know if that's Robert Rodriguez's directing, but
probably
that was so toned down. The subtle, like, his mustache is crooked to begin with, and then he reaches up and just dabs the corner of it to stick it back on his face. It was so subtle, and I thought it was funny. I laughed.
All right.
Again, I think if you go back and watch this movie with the thought in your head that this is the last pure Stallone performance until Tulsa King, you'll appreciate it a lot more.
Oh my gosh, that's sad. I never thought of that, Craig, and I can't argue it. I don't think any of our listeners can. Here's the next scene.
Valentine, my old friend. You think you'll catch me this time, don't you? Well, you will. You will.
This is the first scene in the film that we're seeing the toy maker in his proper getup, in his lair, so to speak, in his online lair that he's trapped within this Phantom Zone game zone. He's able to watch the game, of course, from his seat there. He sees Valentine, which is played by Ricardo Montalban. What do you think of his Ricardo's acting in this film?
He was just there for a paycheck. I don't think he gave a shit about this movie.
Well, he died, 5 years later, he was dead. So, I mean, he had already established himself as a credible actor. And again, Robert Rodriguez was probably like, hey, you can do every one of your scenes sitting down. We're just going to take your head and put it on this mecha body. I think he's adjusting for the audience. I think Ricardo Montalban was like, hey, Sir Laurence Olivier isn't going to be watching this and critiquing me. Little Bobby Rue in Champaign, Illinois, 8-year-old, will be watching this and getting a kick out of my performance.
He didn't act with any emotion throughout this whole film.
I don't know. There were a couple of scenes with Junie where, especially when he talks about why he wants to stay in the game, and he talks about, and also the big speech he has with Stallone at the end, which I'm sure we're going to watch, where he talks about what he took from him when he crippled him, but then also what that gave him. I wouldn't say it's Oscar-worthy by any means, but I think that Montalban at least put some thought into it.
This was his last film role, by the way. Did you guys know that?
I did not.
Yeah. What was his age at the time of this film? Does anyone know that by chance?
70. He was in his late 70s. He was probably this age Sly is now. Casting
him was more of probably a wet dream for Roberts as well, for just the idea of being the part of the Star Trek lore and all that stuff. And I think for parents, so when parents are taking their kids to this movie, these are the scenes the parents are enjoying. Because when you have an 8-year-old kid seeing Sly and Ricardo, they're not thinking, oh, that's cool, look at these two screen legends. They're not thinking that, right? They're just thinking these are older actors playing these characters. But we as the adults taking our kids, this is for us. This is a little bit of a treat for us, so to speak.
83.
Yeah, he was 83 years old.
Well, he moved pretty good for an old guy. No, I think I think he was actually in a wheelchair. I don't know if that was fake. I wonder if he was really in a wheelchair at the time. Like, I wonder if his health was such that it was just easier for him to play being in a wheelchair just to keep him sitting throughout the shoot.
He did do a bunch of voice work after this, prior to his death.
In a wheelchair. Well, he didn't do it after his death?
Well, actually, yeah, he also did the role of the head of council in The Ant Bully, which I think was an animated film.
Nice. All right, we've already lost Doug. Man down, man down.
Well, Doug is away for a minute, changing a diaper or doing whatever he's doing.
Probably.
The toy maker get up here. I love it. I don't think they did Spy Kids 3 action figures, but can you imagine all the variant Stallone figures we could have gotten?
Yeah, it's funny. Okay, we didn't talk about the film's budget. You know, this film did well.
Yeah, it had a cost well under $20 million.
It wasn't very expensive to make.
It says $38 million, which is very surprising.
But it made how much?
Almost $200 million, $197
Yeah, that's
million.
a good turnover, is it not?
In 2024, if you made a movie for $38 million,
yes,
and it did $197 million, and even if we do the adjustment for inflation,
so this came out in 2003. So what did it cost?
$38 million, according to Wikipedia.
So it would have cost $59 million today to make, that's still inexpensive, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
For a big budget film and a trilogy.
Yeah.
Okay, and how much did it make?
$197 million.
A $60 million film giving you $300 million profit. That's a profitable film. Hands down.
That's over a $250 million, right?
Yeah, that's a good turnout. Was this the highest grossing film of the trilogy, or were they all that well received?
So the original Spy Kids made 147.9.
So less? Okay. Probably
Spy
did well in
Kids,
DVD and stuff, or VHS.
Yeah, and then Spy Kids 2, All the Time in the World, which
made
was
less.
4D film, made, 27 million, and it made 85.6. Sophomore slump in effect there. I'm sorry, that's the fourth film. So big drop off between 3 and 4. Let me see. Spy Kids: The Island of Lost Dreams also cost 38 million and did 119.7. We are talking about the highest grossing Spy Kids film of all time.
Was that a combination of the 3D craze at the time and Sly being in the film, do you think? A bit of both? Or do you think it was more Sly than the 3D? What are your thoughts? Because it's interesting for a third film to outgross the previous two in a trilogy, is it not? I mean, even Star Wars didn't do that.
Yeah, it might have been. But also, this was at a time... Oh, look, we got a guest. This was also at a time where I don't think they were doing an upcharge for 3D tickets either.
Oh, there she is, the baby.
Sorry, my babysitter had to leave.
Oh, no. Okay, well, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
Oh, she's adorable. She's adorable.
Thank you.
If she gets fussy, just mute the mic. I'm going to kick you out. No,
I will. Don't worry.
I know. She's adorable. I know babies come first. Family comes first. I have absolutely no qualms about that. I'm having a few kids myself. I get it. All right.
So, Ryan, getting back to the box office, I think it might be what you alluded to as well, where it had built up on probably the success on home video that the first two movies had done. The audience had built since part one, which led to people taking their kids to go see part 3 in theaters.
Okay.
And then there might have been, I don't know, you can probably say 20 million of that box office you have to attribute to, Mike Kunda going out and seeing it.
Yeah.
I mean, just, Mike and people like him that were Sly fans that hadn't seen previous Spy Kids films and wouldn't see future
That's
Spy
what I mean.
Kids
There's a bit of a Sly draw. I would assume there was probably a bit of a Sly draw. The Sly purists out there who have to see everything in the theater that Sly does, you being one of them, so myself included. I probably saw this in the theaters. I just don't remember. I know I saw it with my kids at the very least. I can't imagine I missed seeing this at the time because I probably, like you, Craig, I was hungry for Sly on the big screen. I just don't remember. 21 years ago. Okay, so now we're going to hear the toy maker talking to his other selves, his other personalities. Basically, we have a nerd, so to speak, like a professor type character with Sly's natural hairline. And then we have... I do appreciate that Sly was brave enough to take off his toupee for this scene. And then we have the guru guy, kind of like the peace love. What do you call that? What do you call those guys?
like the hippie or the yogi.
They're called something else, aren't they? Like the spiritual leader people.
Yeah,
like a shaman or something.
Shaman type thing. Yeah,
guru.
Guru type personality. Yeah, and then we have like the war general, old timey war Napoleon like general.
Nazi. Let's call him what he is.
Okay, all right. So these are the three types of personalities that create the toy maker. These are the three different things that he fights with making decisions. So
everything falls into place. Everything falls.
So for our listeners who aren't watching this on YouTube or what have you, he's looking at the imprisoned sister who was captured that Junie's come to save that's trapped inside the video game. And he says everything falls. I never quite knew what he means by that. Is he saying that she's going to fall off her animated space? The way he said it, I don't get what that means. Because he goes, everything falls into place. Okay, that means the plan falls into a place. And then he goes, everything falls. Like she's going to fall. That's what I thought it meant looking at her floating. But anyways.
It's a cool line.
And then he's going to look at his other selves here. We're going to get their a caricature of their personalities coming through here. Sorry, my bad. It's coming up later. I guess I did keep this part with my video edit here. Okay, here is the Toymaker / Rocky-esque type speech where he just announces the boxing fight.
There will be no kidney punches, no rabbit punches, no eye gouging or ear biting, unless, of course, you can't help yourself.
Now, did the ear biting with Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson take place before this film? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 1996, I want to say.
Okay. All right. So there you go. A little bit of a nod to that then. If that's why they wrote that in. It's funny. Okay. Now we're going to the part, I think, where the Toymaker's talking to his other personalities. Here we go.
So, let's go over this again, shall we? So there's no mistakes, so there's no gross error, so there's no lack of communication amongst us. What I want, what we want, what do we want?
Our time on this planet is over. It belongs now to our youth.
Not if we control their minds.
Okay, so we're getting a little bit of the plans here. So the nerdy professor guy's like, well, our time is over. We're the older generation now. The world belongs to the youth. And then the war general said, what did he say there? I already forget.
We control their minds.
Not if we control their minds. So they're saying the older generation, we can still rule the world with the youth if we control their minds, which would lead to why the video game is built. And then the guru love peace dude is about to talk here.
Oh, we could start the world over again and cure it of its diseases. We could begin anew.
So I do like the little hair blow that Slide does there. The long hair that's in his face, covering his face, the wig that he's wearing, he blows it out of his face. That's a good little comedic moment. And I wonder, again, does Robert say to do that, or does Slide do that on his own? I don't know if we'll know.
But it, just like the mustache thing, it's not overstated. It's subtle. He does it and moves on. He doesn't dwell on it like I think normal Sly would.
Yeah, I agree. So the Toymaker says we could begin anew.
Forget what we could do. It's what we should do. Am I doing the right thing?
It's not about the right thing. It's about the smart thing.
That's true. It's a good point. Sometimes the smart thing is better than the right thing.
We won't escape this place otherwise.
I speak for all of us when I say, we want out.
Yeah, it justifies the means.
The Toymaker likes that as well. He's like, that was the general guy speaking, like, we want out of this prison. Let's get out.
Now that guy's supposed to overact, like that character, that Nazi guy. So I didn't mind that as much because the other guys are more subtle and subdued.
Right. Now we have the love guru guy talking. You have the children's attention, he starts saying here.
Got the children's attention. The question is, what are you teaching them?
Toymaker does not like that. I don't think he really wants to teach the children anything.
Who are you people?
Yeah, you. Forgive me. I forget the extent of my programming powers from time to time, and for a moment, I actually believed that you existed. Goodbye.
This childish game will soon be over, and then the real game will begin.
I went back and watched that scene a couple of times because I really wanted to analyze the way he's acting in it. Not the other characters, like himself as a toy maker, but he pounds himself on the chest, and then he was about to agree with the hippy dippy guy, and then he goes, wait, who are you people? The change of his face and everything. I felt it was really good acting and an opportunity for him to really go overboard, and he didn't. He really stayed within himself and did a good job in that.
As a Stallone fan, how can you not love that scene? It's Stallone acting against himself with 4 distinct personalities. I'm a big fan of Stallone's performance in this film. This is probably one of the better scenes as somebody who appreciates watching Stallone act.
Okay, the next thing we have here is Junie has won the death race or whatever scene. Now himself and his ids or his personalities are looking over the game, watching Junie, and they're saying he's good.
The boy warrior, very, very good. But he's got to keep going. We run the risk of discouraging him if the next levels are too challenging. But only by seeking challenges can we hope to find the best in ourselves.
I do like the guru there. That was a good line. By seeking out those challenges, do we find the best in ourselves? I like that.
Can we help him?
No, it's against the rules of the game. This isn't a game. It's life!
I don't mind talking to myself, but when you guys start to cut me out of the conversation, that's when it gets a little strange.
That's kind of a clever moment there. So, because he had those three personalities talking behind his back, they break away to start having their own conversation about this whole ordeal. It's like, I don't mind that I talk to you guys, but when you guys start to have conversations without me, it gets a little weird. Now it's getting a little bit weird.
That's it. More life is what we need. We'll grant the boy a gift. The gift of life.
I think they forgot to fill in some of the green screen behind Sly there.
Yeah, I think so. So now they're going to give the gift of life, he says, to Junie's character, because we should mention that each character gets, what was it, 5 lives or something like that? 9 or 10? 9 maybe?
9.
Though some seem to have 99, like the guy. We'll get to the guy. I want to talk about that scene. Yeah, so
Hilarious.
my favorite of the film, actually. So this is now, again, the toy maker watching Ricardo, the grandfather. We should mention this. The reason why the grandfather's here is Junie was given a choice by the game design or whatever that he could have any help he wanted to get through to level 5, which is the unbeatable level. But if you beat the level, you get whatever it was, riches and glory forever. I do want to say this game is like a very, very early. Now, remind me, when did Ready Player One get written? Do we know the year of that?
10 years
date?
later.
Because if it was written after this film, I wonder if Buddy, who wrote that book, which I've read, by the way, it's a fun book. I get it. It's a fun book. But this is a template for that story.
Are you talking about the book or the movie? The movie was 2018.
Well, the book
No,
was 2011.
Oh,
There you go. Now, am I crazy off my rocker here? It didn't occur to me till after watching this movie now, obviously in 2024. Basically, what I'm getting at, folks, is you've got people living within a game. There's an end level. Remember the gatekeeper, whatever the keys they had to get.
Yeah.
And then you get. So this game is kind of. I don't know what to do because that guy was a big pulp culture guy, and I'm sure he watched Sly films. Do you think there's any kind of genesis between that and in his story? I wonder.
Absolutely. I actually read Ready Player One as the audiobook read by Will Wheaton, which is a pretty cool read.
Cool. Well, that's cool.
Or
Yeah.
listen, but there's nothing original about Ready Player One. Ready Player One's main draw was the fact that it was as pop culture as it was, especially if you're a kid of the 80s.
Oh, do we lose Craig?
He froze.
Am I frozen?
You're not. I hear
Okay.
you. I see you. All right.
That's okay. Craig was
If
talking
I had
too
a
much
dime
otherwise.
for every time his internet crapped out, what is happening in Vegas?
You like his frozen face, though.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue with this seat here. Craig will pop back on, I hope.
But this, if you want to, I mean, if you want to give Craig a chance to come
No,
back.
I don't want to give him any kind of chances. I give him enough chances.
This might have kicked off the movies like Ready Player One, and where the movie exists inside a video game like Free Guy, the new Jumanji movies. This might be the genesis of that.
Yeah, you're right. Other than Tron, I'm trying to think of a film that really delved into this issue of humans playing within a game like
I can't
this.
think of any, unless there's something really obvious that we're missing.
Yeah, probably something obvious we're missing. But
Yeah.
okay.
This is when we need Craig because he's got that
Yeah,
well
he-
of useless knowledge.
No, it's very useful during podcasting.
Yeah.
You are causing so much pain, and only I can stop you. For I know why you do these things. Toy maker, bring it on. Find me, and the world will truly pay the price. Here in my cyber prison, I was
See?
forced to create.
He says, "Here in my cyber prison, I was forced to create." Is he referring to the prison that he was forced to create, or the game itself that he was forced to create?
That's I don't know. Cyber prison doesn't constitute an actual jail.
Right.
But maybe it's like his body is in stasis somewhere and his consciousness is in a prison.
Well, that's what I mean. So he says, in this cyber prison, I was forced to create. So we're asking here, Craig, is he speaking to prison that he created or the game that he created while in prison?
I have no idea.
Okay. So he's speaking to the grandpa here, played by Ricardo, saying, yeah, come and get me. I'll be ready for you.
Now I will destroy. Release the girl. Put her back in the game. But, sir. Oh, you have a better solution, don't you? Of course you do. You all do. So tell me, what is the real answer? Please. I'm so curious. Revenge. Healing. Destruction.
It's interesting that the professor guy said revenge, because the professor guy is the logical. He's like what logic would be, right? But revenge is more of an emotional response, is it not? But he says revenge. Of course, the general guy says hate. Of course, the guru guy says love.
Hate. Well, once again, you're all correct. And once again, you're all incorrect.
Now, remember when he turned him off last time? He just pushed something on the panel on this flat screen on the desk or whatever. Now he has a controller to do it, I guess. I guess there's more than one way to turn off your personalities. And now with the same controller, he's going to release the sister back into the game.
On with the game.
That looks like a RC car controller or something that he's just using, you know, like a cheap Walmart one.
Yes, Doug, I don't think it's actually connected to the sister.
Wait, are you serious? It really had me.
It's movie magic, my friend. All right, so now the toy maker is looking at the group of characters advancing through the game. He's actually trying to lead them to him so he can destroy them, essentially. And he's mad that they're not doing what he wants them to do.
I give them the girl. What more do they want? Can I just lead them to the door? Impossible, sir. The way the game's AI works is one. I know. Can I just talk to myself at least? You are talking to yourself. I am. You, me, shut up. So be it. Am I insane? Completely.
First time in film history, folks, where you see Sly knock out Sly. I don't think we'll ever see that again. When we had Van Damme do it in 3 films, we might as well have Sly do it at least 1 film where he fights himself.
You take for granted these scenes when he's interacting with obviously nobody, but it doesn't seem like he's interacting with nobody.
Yeah, you're right. As an actor, he's got to act to himself. And I'm sure it's oddly weird to, like, I'm going to say these lines and look over here. Another scene, I'm going to be filled in a different costume. I'm going to turn over here and look at where I was and now say these lines. So they do a very good job here, seamlessly interacting Sly's different characters. Rodriguez, the director, obviously, is very adept at doing this, it seems. And yeah, there's no time here really where a couple of times you see the eye line being a little bit off. He's not quite looking at himself properly, but that's just me not looking for fault, but just noticing a couple times the eye line is wrong a little bit. But yeah, he does a good job, I think, interacting with himself. I think it's done pretty well.
Well, part of our job here is to find the seams and stuff like this, and I thought he did a really good job.
We have no choice, Doug. This is why we've been hired to do this podcast.
It's our mandate.
It is.
They're going the wrong way. I have to drive them to level 5.
Okay, so here we have an example, folks. So picture yourself right now. You're at the movies like Craig was with your 3D glasses on. I can only imagine what this looked like because now the toy maker is going to push a button. All he's doing is pushing a button. But it must have been a huge effect in the movie screen to have the Sly's finger come through the screen and poke you in the eye. If this was a 2D film, never for 3D purposes filmed, this is a gimmick scene right here. Watch how he pushes the button.
Send in the Tinker toys.
Send in the Tinker toys. And he like hovers above the button just for a second so everyone can see the big finger through their 3D glasses. Now, I didn't know till after this film the Selma Hayek doesn't have any legit nude scenes out there. I tried to find. Okay, trust me, we've all looked, folks. We've all looked.
Yeah.
I didn't know this was Mike Judge. The Mike Judge. He's a genius. He's a comedic genius.
Austin, Texas. He's an Austin guy, and Robert Rodriguez was working and operating out of Austin, so I'm sure they were buddies.
He's harmless in this role. It's just between him and Salma Hayek playing these guys, the OSS operators. They're basically the good guys overseeing the game against the toy maker overseeing the game. They're the ones sending the kids into play, so to speak. And they have some adults playing too, or admitting or moderating the game as well. The things inside that bald head of his, comedic genius. This guy is funny.
Not just the animated stuff. Like you see the part he plays in Office Space. Like he's really, really funny as an actor.
I never really knew what he looked like. I just know his like King of the Hill and Beavis and Butthead and Office Space and Idiocracy.
Silicon Valley, a TV show he created.
Yeah. He's right up there with Matt Trey Parker as far as I'm concerned, as far as putting a dent or a mark, on the comedy world of animation in particular too. But
and good for him. He's a part 2 callback as well.
So I watched the whole film not knowing that was him till after when I looked at the credits. Yeah, weird to put my brain back to watching the movie like, oh, that was him the whole time. And Salma Hayek, there's very few women in the world that are more beautiful than she is, and she's 21 years later. She barely looks different.
She's aging beautifully.
Yeah, she's also married to a billionaire, which I'm sure helps.
Oh, good for her. Bless her. The reason why we got this scene here is we're going to get a connection. Now, this is kind of a film flub in a way because they don't know what the connection is between the toy maker and Grandpa. And how they don't know this, because they're all part of the same OSS team. The fact they don't know that the toy maker was ex-OSS and they were partners is kind of odd. This is an oversight on these guys to not know that Sebastian was also an agent and they worked together. Here's how they discover it. This is how it plays out.
Check if there's a connection between the grandfather and the toy maker. Hurry, people!
Coming on screen. Comrades turned enemies. Grandpa's gonna break the toy maker out of the game to get his revenge.
Nothing.
There you go. That's it. They work together in OSS. They're ex-OSS agents. It's like James Bond not knowing who Madame M was with her partners. Or like it's weird that they wouldn't know this. Who's this guy? Oh, that face. Oh yeah, he worked for us. He's only 55. It wasn't like he's that retired. It was only 20 years ago. Maybe they went to cyber prison. I don't know.
You're looking too deep into this.
Okay. All right. As I usually do with these episodes, I apologize. Now, here is my favorite scene in the film. I thought this was really well done. The guy played by Elijah Wood, again, Sin City. Elijah Wood, his character in that film is one of the creepiest characters on film. There was something about that guy. Was it the frog or something? What was he called? Or wasn't his character one of the creepiest things on film? I just thought he did. So here he is playing not a creepy character. What was Robert's connection to Elijah? Do we know? Because you had him in this film as a cameo, and then you had him again in Sin City.
Wasn't Elijah Wood in The Faculty?
Oh, you're right. I think you're right.
And Robert Rodriguez made The Faculty.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Oh, there you go. Okay. Who doesn't like Elijah? He's a good guy. Okay, so here he comes in. He is the guy. He truly is the guy. And he's going to rally the kids here to say, look, we're at level 5 now. Let's finish the game. Let's finish the game.
If we join together in battle as one, we play on each other's strengths and help cover each other's weaknesses, we can accomplish anything. And we will accomplish everything. But first, let's go whip this unwinnable level and show it who's boss. Are you with me? Yeah! Stand aside.
Just stand aside. He's going to bust open the doors level 5 with his power suit. Of course, all those shards come out 3D. Steps into level 5, confident and powerful.
Cake.
And of course, for our audio listeners, he gets electrified from 5 different places. All of his 99 lives get eliminated in one crack here.
So that kid there with the goggles on, there was like an MTV prank show. What was the Ashton Kutcher show? Was it Punk'd? I believe he was on Punk'd.
Oh, wow.
Like anytime they needed a kid on Punk'd, he was the kid.
He did look really familiar to me. I just couldn't place him.
He was good. He played the tough guy. He was the tough kid in this movie. Yeah. He was good. Everyone did a good job in their parts. Elijah Wood playing the guy has 99 lives to start off with because he's the guy, but they all go away with that one shot electric shock.
Oops.
Now, this scene here, of course, is where the toy maker reveals himself after they get to level 5, and he's speaking through the character here played by this young girl. I forget her name in the movie. Was it Dimitri or something like that, or what was it?
Dimitra.
Kind of a cool little transition. The toy maker is speaking through her mouth because she ends up, we find out later that she's actually she's a program. She's not real. That's the thing. She does not have a corporal body outside the game. She herself is AI.
You made it to the end of the game. You won! Untold riches for all of you. And your prize is you get to stay here.
Now, I will say there are kids today, maybe my kids included, who would love to be stuck in their Fortnite game or their Roblox games. They act like they're being punished here in 2003, but maybe 2024, every kid's like, yay! No more school, no more chores. Woohoo!
Let's write a movie about that.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that's basically what Ready Player One was, is people were, stuck in their game, and they were happy for it. They didn't want to go in the real world. It was too miserable.
Welcome to the game.
Okay, so we're at the end of the film here. They've escaped the game. All the kids have got out of the game. Events occurred to make that happen. This is George Clooney having a cameo here out of his living room where they filmed it. And what I love here, you guys obviously caught it, but for our listeners and those who maybe watch this on YouTube, you have George Clooney doing his Sly impersonation because they have to transition George to Sly for the scene because the toy maker is actually playing the president, played by George Clooney. And so you see George Clooney do a bit of a Sly impersonation.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. I would just love the talk, though, that Robert George had. Like, I want you to do your Sly impersonation because he does it. He does a very good job.
In the credit outtakes, they show Clooney doing it.
I turned off once I saw the directed by Robert Rodriguez. I admit, I didn't say for post credits. I'm sorry. That's a terrible thing. I should always assume there's a post credit. I apologize to everyone.
What does he want?
I'm coming back to settle the score for imprisoning me, for using me.
Devlin set us up? It's not Devlin.
All I wanted to do was right the wrongs, start over a new world, a new chance, where everyone would get a second chance.
I'm so confused by his mission here. Destroy the world, give everyone a second chance through a video. I don't understand. What's China going to do? You know what I mean? Like China, they're over there like, what are you guys talking about with this stupid video game? Like, it ain't going to fly over here, toy maker. Like, I don't understand what he's talking about the whole world.
But no. So now, I'm taking this to the next level.
This is a historic moment.
Okay, so I want to put this scene in. I don't know. You guys tell me. Was this done on purpose for comedic effect, or did Antonio Banderas go with it and make it funny? So one of his little suction cup things falls off his forehead, and it lands on his glasses. He licks it and puts it back on his forehead to make it stick. I actually think it fell off, and he kept going because he's a professional actor. If you look at the suction on his forehead, it's already red, so it's been there for a while. It's already red from being on his forehead, and it lost suction after some time. So there's no way they would have timed it to fall because he's already in the middle of his monologue. So they're not going to be like, okay, let's start again. Either way, I think Antonio went with it, and this is what makes him such a great actor. Could we say his charisma and screen presence? When he came on screen, even at the end of the film, I was like, man, I like this guy. Who doesn't like Antonio Banderas?
Probably the most important one can disturb me now.
So, and then I love it when they announce your kids have called, doing the most important experiment of his life. And once he finds out his kids are in danger, it doesn't matter. He I don't know why he had to destroy the experiment, but he does because it's for a 3D effect. So check out what Craig experienced at the 3D theater.
Mr. Cortez, your children called. Some sort of emergency?
Well, I'm their uncle.
Okay, so now we have all the cameos of the certain actors. What's the guy's name again? Sorry, he's
Cheech?
Just Cheech Marin, yeah, from
Cheech
Cheech
Marin.
Chong.
Sorry, I knew it was from Cheech and Chong, but I couldn't remember if it was Cheech or Chong. I'm sorry, I always get those two mixed up. So that was Cheech Marin, of course, and I'm their uncle. He was the callback from the first two films, obviously a friend of Robert's. And of course, we have Danny Trejo popping in. Now, funny enough, we're speaking of Danny Trejo here, popping in as Machete. Machete film's been covered on the network. I think one of them was with Mel Gibson.
I did.
Wasn't it? Or
I think with Seco we did part 2 because for the Mel Gibson show.
Mel Gibson, yeah.
But I don't think we've
so.
actually covered part 1, which I've watched within the last month.
Oh, wow. I love both films because I love Steven and Mel's turns as bad guys in those films. I thought they were great. Danny Trejo, of course, a very interesting character in of himself. I have yet to read. I would like to read his biography. It's on my to-do list for reading.
It's excellent. It's a must read. And also, this is a funny story. I also read the audiobook of Danny Trejo's. My library lets you check out audiobooks as well. And I will say one thing. It was very cool to listen to Danny Trejo, read his autobiography.
Okay.
But the hack, if you're ever going to do this, put it on 2-time playback speed. Because Danny Trejo don't think he's the best reader. It's a very, very slow listen. But it was starting to frustrate me. And then on my little playback in the library app, I was like, oh, let's put it at 2-time speed. And it sounded perfect. But Ryan, it's a must read. He co-wrote it with, this is going to blow your mind, actor named Donal Logue, who you probably know from like the first Blade movie. He was Stephen Dorff's buddy who Blade keeps killing.
Oh, wow.
He also had a show called Grounded for Life. He's like a biker looking guy. Like,
Okay.
kind of looks like Hunter Hearst Helmsley if he was not as buff.
He has quite the range between comedy and drama.
But he co-wrote this book with Danny Trejo, and again, Danny Trejo's life story is so interesting and somewhat inspiring. He was in prison for murder at one point. I think it was murder, but either way, book is worth reading.
Okay, so now we got the cameo guys jumping in here. Of course, Machete.
Dinky Winks!
Couldn't not have Bill Paxton, because every time I see Bill Paxton on screen, it warms my heart. And boy, is he missed. What a presence on screen. This kid, probably one of the nicest guys I bet to work with. He just couldn't help but feel that way through the screen. So here he comes in his dinky winks, okay? And he's about to deliver, of course, his classic line from Aliens.
Somebody ring the dinkster. Game over for you, pal. Game over.
So that's a nice little nod, of course, to Aliens, the game over line. And now, of course, we have Steve Buscemi, another great character actor and friend of Robert's, coming in on the, what's this called again? The pig was called something, but Steve agreed that he would do this cameo if he got to keep the pig. That was his condition.
Somebody call in a loon.
Sorry, Romero. This is the only pair we had left.
And this is actually a good gag, very airplane-esque or very Naked Gun-esque. He has a pair of glasses with a crack in the left lens, and they only had one pair of 3D glasses left to give the loon. Of course, the left lens is cracked as well. They apologize. Oh, sorry, it's cracked, but it's cracked just like the glasses you're wearing, so it's a perfect fit.
That's funny.
They're perfect. Charge, Sporky!
So Steve said he would do the movie if he could keep Sporky. I remember at the beginning of the film that the kid had a Sporky bank, piggy bank, so there must have been an extra prop that he got to keep.
Did this animatronic robot or whatever look a little like Sly to anybody else?
So now we're outside the game world. I don't think that was clear. Everyone's outside the game world. They've called on all these past, in other words, I didn't show, but everyone from the previous films. It's basically... This is Joss Whedon's Avengers film. Everyone is together. Get all the superheroes together. So again, the Avengers ripped off Spy Kids 3 along with Ready Player One. We have everyone gathered together to fight the last big foe here. And the mecha robot, now he's physically here inside this robot. But yeah, whoever created this mecha robot wanted it to look like the toy maker's face. Did the toy maker say, hey, I want you to make me my own personalized robot, but can you give it my face? Would you guys have ever said that? Had one been created for you, like make my face? But the toy maker...
I'm not handsome enough for that.
Oh, yes, you are. So now the toy maker's inside the head, of course, controlling the robot. Now Grandpa is there. Junie says, Grandpa, don't do it. Don't kill the toy maker. Don't do it for revenge. It's the wrong reason. Revenge is wrong.
She's there for forgiveness.
He's there for forgiveness. This is the lesson for all the kids. This is the heartwarming message. It's not for revenge, but for forgiveness. But we're going to see a verbal showdown, not a physical one.
It's too late. Nothing can stop me. Not even you.
That's true. Only you can do that. You double-crossed us. The agency, your fellow agents, and me. Your mistake cost me my legs. Well, a mistake like that could only push someone further into the dark, and it has. Look at you now.
But I gave you back your legs when you were in the game. I did that for you.
Doesn't that exchange right there feel a little like Rocky and Paulie?
Oh, yeah.
You know, like friends do. You know, Paulie's like, look what you did. You broke this thing that I owned. And then Rocky's, well, I gave it to you. I don't know. I just got like a kind of Rocky and Paulie vibe from this exchange.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised knowing Sly and how much he likes to tweak his own dialogue. And Robert probably let him because he got Sly to be in the film. Hey, you want to tweak the dialogue? This exchange is probably Sly written. I'm telling you right now. It's very Sly-esque. This whole forgiveness, friends, it's probably very much a Sly-esque. It's got Sly written all over it.
Yeah, yeah.
All the things I've missed in my life because of the accident you caused. I can't walk on the beach with my wife. I missed my daughter's birth and wedding.
But no, hold on. But why?
Yeah, I guess you couldn't call an Uber. I'm not sure.
They're at least 18 years apart.
That's what I mean. Was there something from the previous films that I'm not aware of? Was Ricardo in the previous films?
Yeah, he was in at least one of the previous 2 films. Yeah.
So for some reason, the toy maker breaking his legs, making him paralyzed from the waist down, he was unable to see his daughter be born and then get married. I guess they didn't have wheelchair access, Craig. They didn't have wheelchair access to these events.
The ADA wasn't in effect yet, so they couldn't put ramps in the hospital or the church.
So he's just on the wheelchair. He's in a wheelchair outside the house, outside the chapel. He could in the parking lot. Oh, man.
Now, Let me tell you all the good things that came of it. Humility, spirituality, understanding. You've been living in fear of me all these years, but I've only been searching for you, so I tell you that I forgive you.
So it's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty powerful little moment there if you actually think about it. This is why I kind of think it was sly written.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, I learned how to be humble, to be spiritual. So my body might be broken, but inside my spirit has been healed. And instead of searching for revenge, I'm actually coming to tell you that I forgive you. And you then, Toymaker, have been living in fear of me and my retribution. And that has destroyed you. Your fear of me and what I might do has actually destroyed your life. So this is actually a very powerful message in a little kid's film here.
Oh, yeah.
I've only dreamed I would hear you say something like that.
Well, we almost think he's going to do something nefarious here or something.
You forgive yourself?
But he doesn't.
It's never too late, Sebastian.
There's his name, Sebastian. It's the first time we hear it.
Take your time to decide. We have about 10 seconds. Game over.
So the big mecha warrior thing collapses, and somehow they come out unscathed. We see Grandpa in the wheelchair on top of the head. I mean, he had wheelchair access to the head, but they didn't have wheelchair access to the wedding.
And the head doesn't really look to scale either.
No, because they were just inside that thing.
Yeah, it was huge.
There's the toy maker, Sebastian, a healed man.
So, wait a minute. Who won?
It's not whether you win or lose.
It's how you play
The game.
And isn't that the wife? Isn't she from Bosom Buddies? Remember that Tom Hanks show, Bosom Buddies?
Yeah, and I also knew her from, what was it? Like Ally McBeal, I think she was in that show as well. She played a judge in that show, which I quite enjoyed, Ally McBeal.
I couldn't.
Yeah,
place
she's
it.
a
Very
long,
familiar though.
yeah, she's been one of those actresses have been a ton of stuff. Yeah, she's probably dead now.
To family. To family.
Now that actress, who's that? Carla? I didn't
Carla
realize she was in this
Gugini?
film. She's aged amazingly because this was 21 years ago, and I just watched her in The House of Usher. I don't know if you saw that on Netflix. She's 50 something now, but so she would have been 30 something here. But anyways, she looks fantastic. I couldn't believe it was the same actress because she doesn't look like she's aged in 20 years. It's crazy.
Hey, the grandmother is still alive, or she's 81 years old.
What's her name again?
Holland Taylor. She was, 60 years old. Quite a bit younger than Ricardo Montalban's character.
Sure. Good for him.
So I don't know when they married. Did he marry a child?
So what was it at the end of the movie that you guys enjoyed?
Well, there were two. They show like George Clooney's uncut Sly impersonation, I guess, before they did all the digital trickery to merge them.
Okay.
And then you also get Sly at like the controls of the Mecha Stallone, and he goes into the full Rocky voice, which seems to really get everybody on set really excited because, I mean, come on, he's doing the Rocky voice.
Yo, Valentine, what are you doing in space?
I'm coming back to settle the score. For imprisoning me. For using me.
That might be the end of my career right there.
When Rocky breaks into the voice, it had to be a treat for everybody because it's like he's doing a thing,
And Balboa wasn't out yet, so it had been over almost a dozen years since we had seen Rocky. Although I guess we did have that Lipton commercial, the iced tea.
Yeah.
But still,
everybody has their version of a Rocky impression. He definitely does it the best.
Oh, Clooney?
It's no Sly.
Oh, okay.
Alistair in our chat brought up a good point that there was a quick cameo of Alan Cumming, and of course he played, I think, a bad guy, like you're saying, Craig, in a previous Spy Kids film as well. But yeah, Alan Cumming was in Get Carter with Sly just a couple of years previous. That's funny. And also Antonio Banderas, he's been in with Sly in, of course, Expendables Part 3 and Assassins. So that's kind of cool for them to be in those films together. And yeah, look, guys, this was Spy Kids 3, Game Over. Fun, big episode. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to it and enjoyed our coverage of it. We had some internet problems. We had some baby problems. But all in all, I think we got through it okay.
One other note, though, that Sly did win the Golden Raspberry for this performance.
Oh, good. Perfect. Guess what else has got nominated for the Golden Raspberries just recently?
Expendables 4. Probably every category it was nominated, it was eligible for. I enjoyed the heck out of watching this movie again, but with that said, I doubt I'll watch it probably ever again. which isn't to discount whether or not it's worth watching or how good Stallone's performance is or isn't. But I'd say if you're a Sly fan and you haven't seen this film for whatever reason, I know it's streaming here on Paramount Plus. I think Ryan said you watched it in Netflix in Canada.
Yeah,
so it's not a hard movie to find, I'm sure. It might even have been on one of the free Tubi or one of those other ones. But either way, it's not a hard movie to find. So if you haven't watched it for whatever reason and you're a Sly fan, and obviously you are if you're listening to this show, unless you're a Ryan, Craig, and Doug fan, which if you are, you might want to reconsider your life choices. But either way, I think it's worth checking out. Again, I probably won't watch this movie ever again because I doubt I'm going to have the 80 minutes or whatever to commit myself to this again. We've talked about how life is short and we're all of a certain age at this point. But I enjoyed watching it again. We've covered much worse films in the last year.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And Expendables 4 was nominated for Worst Picture. It was also nominated for Worst Actor with Jason Statham. Worst Supporting Actor was, of course, our friend Sly, which is ridiculous, I think. Worst Screenplay was Expendables 4.
Deserves every nomination. And you know, we're not a fan
Worst
of
Sequel, Expendables 4.
Yeah.
Worst Supporting Actress, Megan Fox, Expendable 4.
Should be a clean sweep.
Side note, Selma Hayek was also nominated for Worst Actress for Magic Mike's Last Dance. So there you go.
Oh, I know we've already beat up Expendables 4, but Expendables 4, man, what a terrible movie. I'm not a fan of the Golden Raspberries, but it definitely deserves it. And I don't think we'll ever be able to make the comparison again. But man, I think out of all the franchises Sly has done, the drop off in quality of the Expendables series has to be the most severe.
How dare you? How dare you?
I mean, seriously, you know, depending on how you feel about, you know, Rocky 5, that series, Rocky and Rocky Balboa are pretty much both good films. Rambo or First Blood and Rambo Part 4, which are the only 4 Rambo movies I consider, are you know, the level of quality between those, the first and last film. I mean, if you go back and watch Expendables and then watch Expendables 4, there's a real what happened moment going on.
No, I agree. It's funny.
Do you have any final thoughts on this movie?
Oh, I guess I shared it throughout the. Look, at the end of the day, I agree with you. I'm never gonna watch it again. I hadn't watched it in 21 years. I'm not gonna watch it again in 21 more years. And I feel bad because I've shown my kids other Sly films even now, and I don't think I'm gonna show them this one. I just don't. I don't think I will even bother with this series in general or with this film. I think they've even moved past the Spy Kids films. For example, we just watched Tom Cruise's War of the Worlds the other day. I mean, that's
great movie.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That's where they are with their film experiences. They're pretty adept kids with quality films. I wouldn't put them through this. The youngest are 9-year-old twins, but even them, they loved War of the World. Then we watched Forrest Gump the next night, and they loved that film. So that's where they're at with their film quality. So I can't expose them to this garbage. There's no point.
How was that basement scene in War of the Worlds? Like that's
great.
That's an intense scene, though. Like
they loved it. It's great watching these films. My 9-year-old son, Grayson, he's a huge Tom Cruise fan. Loves the Mission Impossible films, loves Tom Cruise. Watching War of the Worlds with him was really cool. And
well, I think also, if I remember, and it's been years since I've watched that film, they pan away from the bad stuff, right? You know that, like,
well, there's a scene where he kills Tom. Yeah, he kills Tim Robbins' character.
Yeah,
and he tells his daughter, puts on the blindfold, says, "Sing your favorite song" or whatever.
Yeah, but then the camera also, like, as the audience, we don't see it either.
That's right. You see her singing, but you see him close the door where the guy's working.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, oh, it's intense, man.
Yeah,
it's a great. I mean, look, it's Tom Cruise. It's too bad that Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg had their falling out because they would have had more great films together.
Did they really? I didn't know that.
Yes. Steven Spielberg was driven nuts by Tom Cruise's Scientology behavior at the time.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
Steven Spielberg said, I quote, "I'll never do another film with Tom Cruise again." But
that's weird to me because it seems like that's not something he would bring to set.
He actually made a tent. He had a Scientology tent outside the production area. I think this was peak Cruise. I think he's calmed down since then, but this was peak jumping on the couch, Scientology. I know he's still a member, but I don't know if his PR team has gotten a hold of him. But in the last 20 years, he hasn't really done much. I think that was the apex of his behavior with Scientology.
I have a tinfoil hattie take on this, and I think we might all be dead by the time this is revealed. Okay. But I truly think that Tom Cruise's involvement and support of Scientology was just another gig for him. It was another acting job he was hired to do. Whether or not he was smart of him to do that, but I really think it wouldn't surprise me if it was a paid gig for him. That's wild. That's great that your son's getting into that, and I love talking with you guys so much.
Just for our listeners, of course, I might keep this in, but just for our listeners, Doug had a bow out with the baby.
Yeah.
It happens. That's fine. So Doug gives us listen to Doug's Rocky Minute and other stuff that he does.
One thing I'll say about Tom Cruise is, regardless of how you feel about the guy as a person, you can't watch one of his films and say he wasn't invested in this movie. As soon as he signs on to a film, he's going to take that film all the way. He's fully committed to it.
Yep.
Few actors believe in themselves as much as he does. One of the great examples of that is if you've heard that like leaked audio of him during the filming of the last Mission Impossible
pandemic
movie.
And how serious it was about keeping everyone safe. Yeah, he's passionate about, despite his Scientology background, and we'll close with this on our Tom Cruise podcast, is that he is an absolute professional when it comes to filming and acting, and he's the first one on set, the last one to leave. He's one of those
cares
guys.
about the end product.
He actually wants films to do well, and many people have accredited Talk on Part 2 saving the film industry. So yeah. All right, all praise was Xenu. Is that his name? All right.
Oh, here comes Doug.
Doug.
I think we can get
Doug, we might get a sign off. We might get a sign off from Doug. Doug, do we get a sign off for?
Come on, Doug. He's shaking his head.
Give us a sign off, baby. Crying and all. We don't care.
We're signing off, Doug.
Sorry, guys.
We're signing off. We'll see you next time.
All right. Adios, fellas.
Bye. Oh, man. All right, guys. Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. We appreciate everyone, and we'll see you on the next. What are we doing next for Sly? Shade?
We have Shade left.
Oh, by the way, I went on IMDb. There's like 10 upcoming films, apparently, according to IMDb, that Sly's doing. Cliffhanger 2 is one of them, by the way.
Well, yeah, and then he's also got
Samaritan 2.
Samaritan 2.
So we're not done yet, Craig. We got more to come. We got years of Sly films to cover still. Before we get to Party at Kitty and Studs, that'll be the... We have to do all of his current films before we do that. That was the goal. That when we get all of the Sly films done, we're going to end it with Party, Kitty, and Studs. All right.
Wow, and we did almost over 90 minutes on Spy Kids 3, which I was worried we weren't gonna. But Ryan, thank you for compiling those scenes the way you did. It made it much easier to speak to.
All right, awesome. Thanks, everyone, and Craig, we'll see you again.
Take care.